You know, Nick was with us for a long time. He hosted 3 shows at the radio station. You can he loved his basset hounds, you guys. When he had to give them up, that was so painful for him. But after his bike accident, he couldn't take care for them anymore. He was our neighbor, so these pictures that you see of the backyard with the incredible puppet theater and all the tin cans and the bicycles, and he was just so creative. He was always creating, and it was fire. We had to include some pictures of fire there. How many of you got to enjoy an evening around the backyard fire with Dr. Nick? Yeah, it was a big part of his life too. So we're really happy to be able to be here and just share our love for him with you, and you share your love with us. So open mic for anyone who would like to come and be as creative as you want. If you want to play a song or, you know, do a dance, anything you want to do, Dr. Nick would love it. So step right up.
My name is Mike Chambers. I also go by Purple Mike. I did some work over there at the Union Hall. I used to load in, and I'm a friend of Alan's, all you Union folks from the Van Wezel, etc. Good to see you, brother. He's one of the best bosses ever right there. Anyway, pardon? Oh. I'm not used to this stuff. It's all too technical. Anyway, now I'm talking into the mic. If I say all over that again, all over again. All right. I'm not saying Dr. Nick had any influence on me. But, you know, after the mask stash came out, and then it just kept on growing. And it was kind of neat. I was lucky. Actually, if you look on the Facebook pages of the WSLR, I just posted a picture. I have one of his bikes hanging in my backyard from a tree. He gave it to me. It was the purple one, of course, with the yellow daisies on it. And I hung it in the tree, and it's nice. Got a light in the front and things in the back. And it was very sweet of him to give me that, and I appreciate it. So every morning I get up, every morning when I get up, I should be taller. I need to be shorter. I'll do that. Oh, this is what helps. See, this is where DJs come in. Oh, really? Anyway, anyway, that's my thing with Nick. It was really a sweet guy. Anyway, you all know that. So, don't get nervous. Oh, don't get nervous. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the Velvet Hammer, and I just finished doing my radio show. Of course, it was pre-recorded, but still, I just finished doing my radio show. Dr. Nick used to park his bus right beside the old radio station. That's where he lived for the longest time. And he and I would just kibitz around the station and talk about this and talk about that. His bicycles were wonderful. He had other things that he did. He went to the farmer's market, and he performed with his puppet shows. And it was endlessly entertaining. Nick was a very special person, a small person, and that's okay. But he was special. He was so special to so many of us. And so that's my salute to Dr. Nick. Clap for Nick, not for me.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Rob D'Imperio, a.k.a. the Head Lump on Lumpy Tunes. When I first started here at the station, my show was on Wednesday nights, 11 to 1, and Dr. Nick was on before me. His show was called 33 1/3. He would always end his show with Nancy Sinatra's "These Boots Were Made for Walking." Every show, every single week. We were on every week. And for a joke, after about 3 or 4 months of me doing my show, as a joke, I did a show of covers of These Boots Were Made for Walking. And there are some really hideous, horrible, interesting, crazy covers of These Boots Were Made for Walking. And I think that kind of set us off as friends, because I think he really got a kick out of that. Later on, we collaborated with some artwork for WSLR, and I started doing live shows to benefit WSLR. They weren't here because they're noise shows, and we did them in bars. And Dr. Nick and Bilderberg Jazz did several. They played in 3 of them, I think, and always brought it. They always brought the weird and the wonderful. And Dr. Nick is he is just an incredible dude, and he's a good friend to hang out with, and super creative and fun. And I missed him when he left town to go to Seattle or Portland. Yeah, and I really miss him now. But I wear his T-shirt, and I look around town. I see him around town. I see his bus every single day, so I have a big reminder of him there. There it is right there on John's phone. Yeah, he's just a super guy, and will be missed. His radio shows, his bluegrass show was the first show that I heard on WSLR, driving around in my car, and learned so much about bluegrass from Dr. Nick, reading from a book and playing cassette tapes. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Rob, because he took some time. He went back and he found some great old photos for me to add to the slideshow. So I appreciate that. And one of the things that some of the photos he brought were the croquet tournament, right? So some of you will remember that one of the little fundraisers that Dr. Nick started for the radio station was the croquet tournament in his backyard. And that was always fun. And first champion, right? And we had a special trophy made, right, for that. That's right.
Yeah, all these tall people with microphones, it's ridiculous. Thank you. I know where to get one. DNA on it, $500. Dr. Nick used to do a radio show in the Catskills long before he moved here. And I used to fish the Catskills. And for years, we passed where Dr. Nick was. So we were that close. That close. And then he moved here, and we started talking, this, that, the other. You know, you schmooze. He told me one day he had all his CDs in his car, and somebody broke in and stole them, all his bluegrass stuff. I said, Doctor, I've got hundreds and hundreds of bluegrass recordings, because back then we could all cover other people's shows. And I said, come over. I want this, I want that, I want that. He never came over. Never, never, never. What could I say? But the most fun I had on the air with Nick, way back, the old studio, he did his 10 to 12 show, Bluegrass, when he would read from the book of, what's his name? Thank you. And then he would play the music that the book referred to. And I was going to cover Tracy Hostetler's From the Mountains and Beyond, not at 12 o'clock, but 1 o'clock. So there was an hour in between. I said to Nick, how about we do a show together? He did a half hour of, he liked Garcia, so he did a half hour of Jerry Garcia. I did a half hour of bluegrass. And that was the most fun I had, just an hour with Dr. Nick in the studio. He's going to be missed so much, so much. We have so much legacy. Thank you, Dr. Nick.
Well, my first memory of Dr. Nick was just by chance, quite frankly. It was simply riding my bicycle around downtown. He was an amazing character, obviously, from all the nice things that have been said already. But the one thing that always grabbed me by the heart was that he would always ride, and I didn't know him that well. I knew he was here, but I didn't know what capacity. I knew he was at the station, well, here, actually, Myrtle, the old station. And I'd see him riding around, he'd say, "Howdy, neighbor, howdy." So after a certain number of times that we went by each other, of course, I'd exchange the same thing with him. And over the years, got to know him just actually through Mark Zampella and just from being a programmer here, DJ. And I always, whenever I listened to his shows, it was the same thing with the Bill Monroe thing. Education. You always got some sense of who he was, what he was, and what he loved. And it was just, honestly, being with people. A couple weeks ago, I did my show, and I did my reflection, so I don't know if I really feel comfortable about talking about him this right now, but I do remember the one time he had brought a young mother in and her daughter. I think it was Mother's Day at the station, something like that. And he's always so generous, obviously, with his time. People call up, and he would just freelance it. There wasn't a whole lot of planning going on in that show, probably his existence. I mean, obviously, he just went. And the show went on for a little bit, and he's talking to the girl, the young woman, and she says, "What would you like to hear?" And it always touched me because it's one of my favorite songs too, and it was like a Jackson Browne song. It was I don't know if I can go any further, but it was a great choice, and it just again touched me so deeply with how he resonated with people. He was just a beautiful person, and yes, he'll be missed, but he's here. He's here right now, and obviously in our hearts, and also with the bicycles, his artwork, and his spirit. That's all.
I just want everyone to know that this is an easily adjustable mic. There's a little grip here, and if you're shorter or if you're taller, you can just squeeze that grip and adjust the microphone when you come up. And I made a comment to someone when they came in. They were wearing their peace earrings, and I wore my peace necklace for Dr. Nick. He was one of those people, he said, see peace, think peace, and he obviously tried to put that out in his bicycles, and most of you maybe know that he was doing the peace bikes across America, right? He was trying to take them all the way across the country, and he'd done that and placed them in several cities, and was working on a book as well. And you can see in some of the slides that no matter where he was, he had that concept of peace, right? So you see the stones that he would build on the beach. He would build a peace sign out of shells, out of leaves, just trying to put that message out. And goodness knows we need it.
Hi, everybody. I got to know, I called him Nicky. Maybe I'm the only one. I'm not sure. I said, Nicky. But I think I met him, it was about 20 years ago, and I don't remember where. But I had a connection with him because I know a lot of like jugglers, clowns, mimes, sword swallowers. And he had that vibe, with that circusy vibe. And we just connected, and he was so excited about having his job at Gee Whiz. Does anybody remember when he worked at Gee Whiz? And he was so happy to be there, and then he let me know that he handyman carpenter guy, so he came over to my house and he did some handyman stuff for me, and some of it is still there, and he was just such a sweet man, and yeah, he did have a nice way of just making you feel welcome and even loved. You know, he was very, very nice, and I used to love to see him at the farmers market. And I would spend a little bit of time there with him, and that was about it. But it was a long time ago that I got to know him, and then I noticed that I didn't see him at the farmers market anymore, and I didn't know what was going on. But you know, I think a lot of us are actually curious about what happened to him. Like, what, you know, he passed away. So was he sick? Was he so maybe somebody can tell us. I don't. Maybe we're not supposed to know. I don't know. But that's my request. And thank you, everybody.
Hi, I'm Roy. I'm the business agent for the Stagehands Union here. Nick was a member for several years. Certainly one of the more uniquely talented individuals that I ever met. I remember when he called me years ago and he said, well, what do I have to do to work with you guys? And I said, well, what do you do? And he says, I make stuff. I said, okay, you're in. But it turned out that he was a great member and always well-liked. And, you know, when you came into work and knew he was going to be there, you know your day was going to be a little bit more cheerful. So I'm sure if any of the families here or his other friends, you know, we're all going to miss him very much.
I'm Lisa Bone, and I worked in the office at the radio station for a couple years pre-COVID. And my memories are in the afternoon when he would come by the office and he just needed to unload the day. And I would sit and listen, and he would tell me about the projects he was working at for the theater buildings, I guess, housing or something for FST. He would tell me about, you know, which bicycles he moved where, because he'd get up at 5 in the morning and he'd reorganize the bikes, move one from, you know, so they were never in the same place for long periods of time. And then the thing I really remember was he would tell me about the deplorables who ruined, you know, who would vandalize the bike, and that's what he always would say. The deplorables, they got this one and they took this off, or they, you know, wrecked this, and he had to take them home and fix them, and then he would bring them back and have to repair everything. We did share that we were both swimmers. He swam on Lido. He swam up and down the beach just for swimming. He would say, I don't know how he counted strokes, I think he told me. You know, I did 500 strokes or something like that. And I'm a pool swimmer more than that. But we would talk about, you know, did we swim? And I remember when it got too cold, he's like, no, I'm not doing that anymore, you know. And one time, well, I would find bikes for him, especially the little ones. I don't know, you pass one in somebody's trash. I go, oh, he could probably use this. So I was always dropping off bikes at his house. And one day I was by there, and of course, you know, I think living alone, he was very talkative. So you go by there and you're not going to leave very quickly. So I remember going in, and he showed me the stage for this show. And I'm so anxious to see the product, because I got to see the stage, and he showed me all the ins and outs and what opened up to where, and, you know, what it looked behind, and some of the characters that he was working on to put into this show. So I'm really anxious to see how it turned out. Those are some memories that I have of sweet Dr. Nick.
Actually, I remember the despicable deplorables. And I used to bring Dr. Nick bicycles all the time as well that I would pick up. But what I will carry with me forever about Dr. Nick, and what I remember the most, is his saying that a flat tire is not necessarily a bad thing unless you make it one. And, you know, I have a tendency to become negative when, you know, life dumps on you. And I think of Dr. Nick in times like that. And that's how he lives on in me, is by keeping me from, you know, really negative vibes. I don't always win, but Dr. Nick's there helping me. So thank you, Doctor.
Squeeze. Okay, there we go. Back down again for my size. I'm Terry Binder. I shared a lot of things everyone's already spoken about, but a few things that were different. Nick and I were on the board together, so we could sit together and get frustrated about, this was early, so we had a rough time, you know, fundraising and things like that, that like nowadays go much smoother. But another thing, I did home care, and so many times I would drive around and I would bump into Nick, and I'd say, "Oh, there's Nick," and we'd say, "Howdy, neighbor," to each other, whether it was on the bike or in his bus, the Tiger bus. And I'd come home and I'd say to Mark, "Oh, I saw Nick today." And it was like, it really cheered me up, because some days can be pretty lousy when you're seeing a lot of sick people. And I just wanted to say one more thing that I thought about. Nick, when we had our Grateful Dead Day, he always did the tie-dye shirts, you know, especially with the kids. And he was just always doing something so beautiful. And to me, he always made me feel like $1,000,000 whenever I would go up to him and, you know, say, "Hi, how you doing?" And I even got to treat him because he hurt his knee. This was years before the accident. He had some surgery on his knee. So I was able to even help him with some of the pain in his knee. So when I think of Nick, I think of so many things. And for me, he's still here. Thanks.
Is that guitar I can play? I don't know whose guitar it is. Taylor. Go for it. I don't know if it's in tune either. I guess we're going to find out. I'm not a very good guitarist, so bear with me, but I just had an idea when Rob was talking. I think Doc would appreciate a sing-along. And, you know, it's funny, I feel like I see him all the time. I'm Kat, by the way. I used to have a radio show here back in starting back in the old house. And just kind of been like hanging around making a nuisance of myself ever since. But Doc and I were both cyclists. I mean, obviously, Doc was a cyclist. He had his piece bike he rode all around town, and we'd pass each other on our bikes all the time, and just howdy neighbor, and ride on by. But there's this other bus in town. Maybe some of y'all have seen it. That's a tiger stripe bus, like Dr. Nick's yellow bus, but it's a white bus. I don't know whose bus it is, but when I first started seeing it, I thought it was him. And like for the past, weirdly, probably mostly since he moved to Portland, I see it all the time. And I saw it on the way over here today, and it was cool. It was like, I know that wasn't actually, I guess as far as I know, that wasn't actually his bus. But I had thought it had been like his bus before the Tiger bus. But every time I see it, I think of him. So this is mostly going to be, can I tighten this strap? I'm going to sit. That's going to help. There's a song I don't know how to play by a band called All the Apparatus. And I'm just going to kind of fake it, but then we're going to have some Nancy Sinatra. There is a pick stuck in there, you're right. Close enough for folk music? Let's go outside and go ride bikes. Let's go outside and go ride bikes. Let's go outside and go ride bikes. You keep saying you've got something for me. Join in, y'all. Something you call love, but confess you've been messing where you shouldn't been messing. And now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking. That's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. Sorry, I gotta scroll. You keep lying when you ought to be truthin'. And you keep losing when you ought to not bet. You keep messing when you ought to be saving, when you ought to be changing. Now what's right is right, but you ain't been right yet. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep playing when you shouldn't be playing. This says E7, that sounds wrong. I'm going back to regular E. And you keep thinking that you'll never be burned. Ha! I just found me a brand new box of matches, yeah. And what he knows you ain't had time to learn. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. Are you ready, boots? I got an idea. Let's go outside and go ride bikes. Let's go outside and go ride bikes. Let's put our boots on and go ride bikes.
I was Dr. Nick's neighbor for 15 years. And we spent many an evening together. I spoke with him a couple weeks before he passed. And he'd be happy that you're all here today. He was having a rough time. I'll try to answer a couple of the questions that were brought up. Dr. Nick had leukemia, and his body stopped making blood cells. So he had to get transfusions. And, when he was in Sarasota, the transfusions were, twice a year. Then they were 4 times a year. And since he's been in Portland, he had 17 transfusions. And his body had completely stopped making any more of the blood cells. And he called me and he said, I can't do this anymore. And he told me, he said, so I think October, Dave, I'm going to leave the world. But I think it just came sooner than he had expected. When I had spoken to him, we talked probably, since he was in Portland, we probably talked once a month. And he had gone from, walking with a stick to a walker. And the last time I spoke to him, he was in a wheelchair. And you can imagine this man was creative 24/7. If you live next to him, he was constantly working on something during the morning, during the night. You know, he was a true craftsman and a creative person. It was just his character. You know, a lot of us try to find time to do that stuff. He made the time, and he'd be deeply missed by me, and I know a lot of you. He was my therapist as well. I think we both played that role with each other in front of the fire. And, you know, we always, you know, left with peace out, you know, so.
So we're going to take a little break and we're going to watch the Tin Can Rebellion. And I hope that maybe some of Nick's friends and colleagues from FST or some more union folks might come up after the movie and share with us, because we'd love to hear from you as well. Don't want WSLR folks to hog all the mic time. They like the mic, you know, so.